Hi everyone, I'm Lessen, and today we are going to learn how to make a delicious, simple soup. I love making this kind of dish. I often make it once a week during the cold winter months as it's so welcoming and warming. So we're going to get ready for practical first, or mise en place. That means that we need to wash our hands, we need to put our hair up, put on an apron. I'm wearing my chef's whites today. We need to sanitise our surfaces and get our equipment. We're going to go through the ingredients now. To make a simple vegetable soup, we want to start with an onion. We're going to need a carrot, a leek, a potato, a stick of celery, as well as a vegetable stock cube or some bouillon. We'll need a little bit of oil and some salt and pepper and some coriander. If you'd like to make a minestrone soup instead, you're going to need a clove of garlic and a courgette. You're going to need some mixed herbs, a tin of chopped tomatoes and 50 grams of pasta. Of course, the wonderful thing about soup is that you can add pretty much anything. You could use a sweet potato or a parsnip, some butternut squash perhaps, pumpkin. You can use pretty much whatever you have that's in the fridge. So think about adding those if you need to. Wanted to take the opportunity just to go through knives very briefly. The ones that I tend to use as a proficient cook at home are ones like this, which is a chef's knife or known as a cook's knife. Big guy like this one, which is a santoku knife. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I love this guy, I use them all the time. We have other ones as well, like a bread knife, serrated. Also a serrated knife for things like tomatoes. And even things like fish knives or paring knives, like these very small ones. But the ones that you need to worry about are vegetable knives, or also known as utility knives, because they're general use, they're used for lots of different things. So I actually have two, you see they're very similar. I have one which is slightly longer and one which is slightly broader in the blade. So hopefully you have something like this at home, because that's what you're going to be using next. The first thing that we want to do is to pop a bit of oil into a large saucepan. So I have quite a deep bottom saucepan here. You could use a slightly wider but more shallow one. Whatever you have available is absolutely fine. Now I've picked some olive oil here because it gives a lovely rounded depth of flavour. You could use sunflower oil, a vegetable oil or coconut oil. We want to pop in about a tablespoon's worth. You could just approximate, or you can get a tablespoon measure. And we want to make sure it's about level so that we know it's the right amount, and pop that in there. One of the most important skills that you will learn in cooking is how to dice an onion. We're going to go through that now. But just a little bit of background first of all. You get different types of onions. You get white or brown onions like these ones, and you get red onions like these ones. Don't worry about the different sizes, they just come in different sizes. Now, white or brown onions are best for cooking with, and they'll turn translucent when they're cooked. Red onions are best for eating raw. They're sweeter, they're crunchier, things like coleslaw for instance, they lend themselves better too. You can cook with them, but they tend to catch a little bit more, and you have to be more careful when you're cooking them. So we're going to focus on the white onion today, and we need to go through a few different stages to make sure that we are doing this sufficiently. So the very first thing that we're going to do is to cut it in half. Now when I say in half, we need to make sure that we're following the right half. We want to make sure we're not going to cut it the wrong way. So you'll see here that we have the stalk. Okay, this is where the leaves and the flowers would grow from, and down here you'll see that this is the root. You can see the little root hairs growing out here. It's a bit more obvious in this one. There you go. So we want to make sure that we are always cutting from pole to pole, not around the equator. Okay, so from pole to pole, not around the equator. So we're going to cut it in first, because if it rolls, what do? We cut it in half. So we're going to cut it in half from pole to pole, from stalk to root. I'm going to use the bridge technique. I'm holding my knife nice and firmly with my thumb on the side like a magnet, ready to go, an extension of my arm. So through, bit of a sawing action, they can be quite tough, all the way down, all the way through. There we go, and now we have 2 flat sides to place down. The next thing that we're going to do is to cut off the stem in each instance. So I'm going to keep my fingers clear using the claw. I don't want to cut off too much of the stalk, but enough to actually make it easy for myself, and I'm putting it in my bits bowl to one side. Claw, strong arm, bits bowl. There we go. Next, we're going to peel it. Don't bother trying to peel it first, honestly, it's so much more difficult. This way you'll find it a lot easier. Now if you just get your thumbnail underneath, you'll be able to peel the papery parts back. There we go. This one's fighting with me a bit today. There we go. And we also want to make sure that we're removing any root hairs and any bits of papery outer off the chopping board as well, because we don't want to get in that food. It's not going to be very appetising. If you're particularly struggling, or if the onion has quite a leathery outer layer, you can just remove the top layer. Obviously we don't want to do this on onions that don't need it, because otherwise they're just wasting food, but just for the demonstration purposes I'm showing you now. There we go. Okay, the next step we're going to do is to slice it parallel to the chopping board. Okay, parallel meaning 2 lines that never touch, so parallel to the chopping board, if chopping board's coming here, parallel this way. Okay, so you probably want to cut it just the once. If it's a very large onion, or if you're feeling a little bit more confident, you could cut it twice, 1, 2. I'm just going to cut it once for now. I'm going to use my claw, but I'm going to keep my fingers right at the very top. If I'm holding it back here and my knife were to slip, I'm going to cut my fingers. Okay, so fingers right up the top, coming down nice and low. I'm using a sawing action and a bit of a wiggle. And I'm not going to cut it all the way through. Okay, I've got it still attached to the root, about a finger's width from the root. Okay, so I'm going to do that to both. Remember, coming down nice and low, fingers clear, give it a wiggle, use a bit of a sawing action, go far but not all the way through. Next, we're going to cut columns. Okay, I'm facing you, so I'm going to cut columns this way. So for me, I'm going to be doing it, cutting columns towards the root, so the tip of my knife towards the root. I'm going to use the claw technique, and the closer the columns are, the better. So I'm putting the tip of the knife into the onion and pushing down. Tip of the knife, pushing down. Tip of the knife, pushing down. You can use a bit of a sawing action if you need to, if your knife is not very sharp. Now as I get closer to the end, you can see I haven't really got much to hold on to, and that's okay. Now I can use the bridge technique, but just being really, really careful of my thumb. So use the tip of the knife all the way down. There we go. So you can see my columns here, like a little fan, like a little flower, like so. Do that to the other one. Tip of the knife all the way down. Using my claw, always. If my knife were to slip, the worst that's going to happen is I'm going to catch my nails, and then just for the last cut, minding my thumb. Okay, we are nearly there. The very last thing we're going to do is we're going to do our dice. So we're going to cut it, it's like columns, but this time we're going towards the root. So we've cut it this way and this way, now we're going to cut it this way. We'll have lots of even, tiny squares. So fingers over the top. Now this time, rather than just balanced on the top, because the onion will like to spread out, to fan out, I'm actually going to use my fingers in the claw, but my little finger and my thumb are holding it on either side. So I can actually pick it up just like that. Okay, really keeping everything together. So all the way down, and there's my dice. Keep my fingers clear, always. And as I get towards the end, if I've got a little bit of extra, I can even just cut it free from the root, like so. Making sure I'm not getting bits of root hairs, bits of stuff that I don't want in there. And now I've left the root behind. Now the reason that we leave the root fairly intact is because it's the root end that holds most of the chemicals that makes us cry. If we limit the amount of times that we cut into the root, we are limiting the number of times that we're actually going to release those chemicals up into the air that make us cry. So I've managed to do all of that. Can't feel any irritation in my eyes at all. If you get a little bit, that's understandable. You're cutting an onion. It's probably going to happen, but this way you'll guarantee that you are less likely to cry. So I'm going to finish it off for my other side now. And I've diced my onion. Now we want to peel and chop our carrot. So to start with our peelers, they come in different varieties. Obviously just use whatever you have at home or whatever you find works best for you. So it could be one that you hold along like so, or it might be one that you peel towards you or away from you like that. Pro tip from me to you, if you peel the wider end of the carrot first, then it's less likely to slip through your hands, because obviously if you peel the more narrow end, it becomes very slippery. It's more likely to have less grip. So I'm going to peel the wider end first. Just rotating it as I go. And now I've got a big chunky end to hold on to, and now I can peel the other end. There we go. And I'm just going to pop the peel in my bits bowl. Now I have my utility knife or vegetable knife. I'm going to hold it, thumb on the side, and with a claw I'm going to cut the end off. So I'm going to top and tail it, so I've chopped off this end. Now with the claw, I'm going to cut off the other end. I'm actually going to chop it in half just to make it a little bit more easy. And I'm going to use the bridge with my fingers either side, cut all the way through, making sure the knife is an extension of my arm. Now I have two flat sides that I can work with. I'm actually going to cut these in half as well. Like so, like so. Now, with the claw, I'm going to chop small rounds all the way up, so I'll have little quarter pieces. Carrot can take a little bit of cooking. It takes a little while for it to get soft, so we want nice small pieces. There we go, slowly as we get to the end. There we go. You can see my little coin thickness there, about a pound coin thickness. And for the other pieces, and there are all my pieces, all very similar thicknesses, and they can go in my saucepan. Now I have my leek. Now this is obviously quite a big leek, so I've upgraded to my big chopping board. Now the very first thing that we want to do is to remove the outer layer. It's always quite leathery, doesn't always travel as well, so we're just going to peel that all the way off, like so. And that can go in our bits bowl. Now you might have a little bit of soil on here, which has often happened, so we're just going to run it under the tap and wash that off. Okay, once we've done that, we want to just cut off the most leathery end parts of the leek up here. So just going to bundle it together and just chop it free in my bits bowl. I don't want to cut off too much of the green part because it's perfectly edible. Don't just need to eat just the white bit. And this is really key. What we're going to do is we're going to hold it with the bridge, and we're going to put the tip of our knife in, and we're going to cut down from the bottom all the way to the top. There we go. So we've fanned it in half. Now that serves a really important purpose. When leeks and cruciferous vegetables like cabbages grow, and spring onions, they often gather up soil and dirt as they grow. And that's completely natural, that's absolutely fine. But obviously we don't want to introduce that into our food, otherwise that's going to cross-contaminate. So this is why we fan it out. Now I can take it to the tap, run some water over it, really get my thumb in there and wash it all clear from both sides. Okay, so I've washed all the soil clear, and now we've got a lovely, clean, fresh leek. Look at that, delicious. So we're going to chop it all the way down into chunky pieces. So I'm going to gather it up using my pinky and my thumb to bunch it together, and I'm going to chop it into mid-sized pieces. They don't need to be too fine, just cutting all the way through. And the other nice thing about cutting it in half is that actually we've done half the cutting already. Made it much easier for ourselves. There we go, all the way down. And to the end, and then the root can go in our bits bowl. This is going to go in our saucepan. Next we have our celery. Now similarly to the leek, it often will have a little bit of dirt round in the bottom. So we want to make sure that we are washing our celery nice and thoroughly, giving it a really good scrub with our thumb. Next we want to remove the leathery part of our celery up here. I've got my claw technique, and I don't want to take off too much, I don't want to waste the food. And I'm going to do the same to the bottom as well. There we go. And I'm going to, similarly to the leek as well, going to cut it all the way along. There we go. And now I can put the pieces together, and I want mid-sized pieces like the leek. There we go, and now it's going in the saucepan. Now we need to peel our potato and dice that as well. When we come to peel things like this, we want to make sure that we are keeping our fingers really clear. We don't want to put our fingers down at the bottom because we might catch ourselves, so keep our fingers nice and clear either side. You could always rest it on the chopping board if you prefer. Now we want our potato in small cubes, about 1 centimetre cubed. So to do so, if it rolls, what do? We cut it in half, because then we have a flat surface to work on. So with our bridge, my knife going through like a choo-choo train, cut it all the way down. And then I'm going to go half, half and half again until I have small enough pieces. Small cube pieces like so. Now I'm going to make my stock. I've included my powdered stock in here. You can pop your stock cube in, and we need 350 to 400 millilitres of water. So I'm just coming down nice and low from my kettle, and I'm just checking the level. There we go, like so. So now I'm ready to cook my vegetables. So I'm going to turn it on. Mine's electric. I'm going to put it on this one here, and this goes up to a 9, and I want it on a high heat to begin with to really fry them off. So I'm going to put it on an 8, maybe a 7. Obviously you use the heat that you have available at home. So I'm just going to give all my vegetables a quick little stir just to get them coated in that oil which is at the bottom of the pan, and we'll come back when they're starting to cook. So it's been 5 minutes and I've been stirring fairly continuously. The onions have gone translucent, so have the leeks a little bit, and everything's sort of packed down slightly. If you are making minestrone, obviously you'll have your courgette and your garlic in there as well. Now we're ready to add our vegetable stock. There we go, all the way in, and give it a little stir. If you're making the minestrone, it's at this point that you add your chopped tomatoes and your pasta. We want about 2 teaspoons of mixed herbs. There's 1 and 2. I'm also going to add a little bit of pepper. Now most people have black pepper at home, so you can put a little bit of that in. Nice little crack of that. What I often use in soup specifically though is actually white pepper, because black pepper can discolour the vegetable soup a little bit, whereas white pepper won't do that. So whatever you have available. Then we're going to give it a really good mix around, encourage everything in. And now I'm going to put a lid on it, because I want to keep the heat in. It will take less energy if the lid's on top, otherwise all the heat escapes. And I'm going to reduce this down, and I want it on a simmer. So I'm going to put it on about a 4 or a 5, a low medium heat. I'm going to leave that for about 20 minutes. See you then. While that is simmering, we want to do our washing up. So remember that a brush is a really good way of getting rid of surface residue. Goes down the side, not back into our nice hot soapy washing up. And then we want to get ourselves a sponge or a scrubby to really clean the inside as well as the rim. We want to use just a little bit of water to rinse it off, and then it's ready to dry. It's been 20 minutes. Let's check if it's ready. So, mind the steam, be very hot. Now we'll be able to check if the vegetables are done with the fork test. So I'm going to get a little bit of the carrot first of all, and if I can spike through without any resistance, then the carrot's ready to go. I want to get a large piece of potato as well, and if I can press it up against the side and have it mash really readily, then that means the vegetables are ready. Everything else will be too. So I can turn that off. Now it's completely your choice. You could just leave it like this, have a lovely chunky soup which is almost more like a stew, and lots of people like it that way. But if you'd prefer, you could blend it. Now if you have a large standard blender, you want to pop everything in, being nice and careful not to make sure you're not splashing anywhere, and then you can just blend it on high. Or if you have a stick blender like I do here, then we can go ahead and blend it in the saucepan. So we want to check the speed that it's on, and it just works by pressing the button like so. Now when it goes in, you want to make sure you're keeping it upright. You want to use a plunging motion to begin with to make sure the vegetables are really getting up into the blades, which are obviously very dangerous. And you want to make sure that you're not turning it too much, because what will happen is that it will spray out, and obviously that is boiling hot liquid which could injure you, could scald you. So you want to keep it nice and upright like so. Here we go. Wonderful, that's looking really hearty and delicious. So now we're going to season to taste. So I'm going to dip my teaspoon in, a fresh clean teaspoon. I want to make sure that I'm going to blow on it. Make sure it's not too hot, and then we're going to try it. That's pretty nice. I can taste the vegetables, but it definitely tastes a little bit bland. Even with that vegetable stock in it, which is giving it the salt and the seasoning, and it's a little bit bland. So I'm going to put my teaspoon to one side, and now I'm going to grab a little bit of salt and pepper. So I'm going to start with some salt. Just pop some in my hand, and I want a generous pinch, or maybe even 2. And I'm going to grab some pepper, and I'm going to put in a pinch of that as well. And now I'm going to blend it up again to mix it all together. So now I've grabbed a fresh, clean teaspoon because we don't want to cross-contaminate. I'm going to dip my spoon in once more. Make sure it's nice and cool. I can taste that more readily. That's definitely getting there. I think it could even do with a pinch more salt. I don't think it needs any more pepper because it already tastes a little bit peppery, which is lovely. So just that little bit of extra salt, I reckon. And with a teaspoon, last test, this should be right. That's much nicer. It almost has a quite a creamy taste. I can really taste the leeks and the onions in it, and I've got that sweetness from the carrot as well. That's really delicious. That salt has really helped that flavour. Soup is such a quick, easy, staple food to make, and it's so warming in the winter months. You can use whatever vegetables that you have available, ideally ones that are seasonal as well. Now I'm going to portion my soup out into some Tupperware containers ready for my lunches for the coming next few days. I'm looking forward to enjoying that with some wholemeal buttered toast as well. I hope you enjoyed making that with me. I'll see you next time. Bye!